back to my channel. I'm Ruby, this is Ruby Red, and today we've got a vlog. Today marks the beginning of another round of Squash That series, which is a readathon that's hosted by two of my friends, Bailey and Kayla, and both their channels are going to be linked down below, of course. This readathon is all about finishing series. I am really excited for this round because, well, for two reasons. The first reason is because it's based on my TBR game, which is really exciting. I play a TBR game every month. If you don't know, Tic-Tac TBR. I make a nine prompt grid and I read books to try to get 3 in a row, and that is the same format as this round of Squash That series. Previous rounds had a board game element or a bingo board, but yeah, this time it's Tic-Tac TBR. And the other reason I'm excited is because I think I'm going to win. And I have not won at all any of the other rounds that I participated in, so I'm really excited about that. How am I going to win, you might ask? Let me show you my board. I have myself creating this board in my July TBR game, so that will be linked below too, probably. But I'll just run through the prompts right now and then tell you the plan. Okay. First of all, 3-star prediction. Hate that prompt, so rude. A book on my TBR, The Longest. That one is complicated. Put on multiple TBRs before. That one is not complicated, but it's also not good. Then I have most recently started series, novella, The Longest sequel, continue from a previous round, a series that you were caught up on, and finally a book rated less than 3.75 stars on Goodreads. So I'm not going to even tell you about the books that I would need to read to complete this entire board. I'm just going to tell you the books that I plan to read in this vlog. This readathon is 4 days, so I tried to keep that in mind making my plan. And so there are like levels to the plan. The first level is just getting 1 3 in a row. To do that, I'm going to read 2 books because you can double up books in this game, unlike in my game. I already started both of the books that I need to get my first 3 in a row on this board. The first book, which will fulfill the 3-star prediction prompt, and a book from a previous round, is Death in the Clouds by Agatha Christie. It's a Hercule Poirot mystery. I have read one of these books in all the other rounds of Squash That series. It's a really long series and they're great for a readathon because they're so short and easy to read, like fast, fast paced and fast absorption of the words. And I am predicting I give this 3 stars. The thing with the Poirot mysteries, Agatha Christie, like the titles that you know are the good ones, and that's why you know them, because people talk about them. You've heard of like Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile, even like Murder on the Links, but you haven't heard of Death in the Clouds, have you? I hadn't, and so that leads me to believe it's one of the ones that is just fine. 3 stars. I haven't been rating all of these super high. Some of them I have, but most of the time it's, just a fine book. So that's my 3-star prediction and my continue from previous round. Then to get that 3 in a row, I have to read a book in the series that I started most recently, which is the Wayfarer series by Becky. So the book I'm going to read for that is A Closed and Common Orbit. And that's the second book, and I have the audiobook, and I've already been listening to it this morning and I'm enjoying it. I really like the narrator, so that's gonna be great, and that's gonna allow me to read while I am working and doing other stuff. So yay. So that's the main plan, but I'm just gonna tell you right now my aspirations, my ambitions. Basically, I can also use that Hercule Poirot book as my less than 3.75 star on Goodreads, even though I think it has like a 3.8, but it's the lowest rated sequel that I am, that is available to me, that like is up next in all of my series. So I'm counting it instead of from a previous round. So it would be like 2 corners diagonally, because another book that I could read from a previous round, and which I have an ebook of, is Lachlan's by Robert Jackson Bennett, and that's the 3rd book in the Founderside trilogy, and I read Shorefall, the 2nd book, in the round that we did in March. And that's a series that I was caught up on because I read Shorefall in March, and then Founderside just came out in June. So I was caught up on it, and now I'm gonna finish it. So you can see I'm so close to getting another 3 in a row. If only I could find a novella to read. And so I got also an ebook of Inheritance by Robin Hobb and her other pen name, Megan Lindholm, I think. It's just a collection of short stories / novellas from her series, and there are a couple that pertain to the Realm of the Elderlings, which I am reading, and so I could read one of those, and that's my novella, and then I would get 3 in a row, and that is our stretch goal, but yeah, it would be fine if we just got the one, you know, as long as I win a little bit. Now, something fun that's going on. So, as I said, I already started both of these books. Death in the Clouds is taking place on an airplane, or rather on an airplane. Somebody was alive when they got on the plane and dead when the plane landed, and there's, you know, it's a closed room sort of a situation, like only so many people were on the plane. That's the kind of mystery, and I honestly wish I had already drawn a chart. Maybe I can find it online, because I read the first 15 pages in bed this morning before I even got up, because Bailey has been posting hourly challenges today, and the first one dropped at 7 a.m. for me, and it was to read the number of pages to read the same amount of pages as there are letters in your full name for me, which is 15. And then I actually continued reading that just for a little bit. I just sat outside for the next challenge, which was to only read outside during that hour. So I just enjoyed the second half of my coffee, sitting outside and reading just for a couple of minutes before I came back inside and started to work. And I waited until the end of the hour to start my audiobook, which was A Closed and Common Orbit. And the premise here is there are some characters that we're following still from the previous book, like there were side characters in the first book, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and now there's a new story that just like ties in slightly. It's in the same universe. And this story is following an AI who is disguised as a human, and the person who is sort of taking care of the AI and helping them like learn to pass for human, because AIs in a body is illegal in this world. And I have honestly no idea where this story is going, and I don't care. I love it. And that's where we're at for now. So I'm just going to head back to my desk and keep listening to that book, and I'll let you know if anything crazy happens. We have reached the second day of the readathon. Yesterday was really fun. I, around my work in the afternoon, was able to complete 5 of the 8 reading challenges that Bailey posted. And I also took a trip to the beach after work, just to read a little bit in the sun. And then I read a bunch more in the evening. I finished Death in the Clouds by Agatha Christie, and yeah, I don't know if I'm going to continue with the series, honestly. I think maybe I will just like read the very popular ones and not bother with all the rest of them. I wanted to read the whole series sort of just like as a fun thing to say that I did, but the mystery in the book was very good. The plot is that there is an airplane and a woman ends up dead. So then we sort of start to find out who that woman is and how anybody on the plane could have a connection to her and could have wanted to kill her, but also literally how they could have killed her, because she was killed with a poisoned dart on a plane full of, you know, like 12 other people, I guess, a small plane. And nobody noticed. So there are sort of two mysteries there. And both of them are interesting. Both of them resolved in ways I didn't quite expect. I did call some of the other like secondary like relationships, but I thought that somebody else had done it. I was like really certain that I knew what had happened like right away. And then the story was avoiding that line of questioning for so long. And I was like, how come nobody is talking about this? Like that must be the thing, because everyone is pretending like nobody saw that. But then that's not what it was. Anyway, the mystery was good, but you know, Miss Agatha, she product of the times, whatever, but this book was racist. This book was actually shockingly fatphobic, like out of nowhere and for no reason. I mean, when is there a reason? But it was like unprompted, spontaneously. And also just every man in this was so horrible, and you were getting their internal monologue or whatever, and I was like, bleh. Like, I know, you know, that some men are disgusting and think horrible things about women, but to have read so many different varieties of that in this one little book was exhausting. And for that reason, I just don't know if it's worth it for me to keep reading them. They're short, they're easy, they're quick. That's like fun, but there has to be something else that I could be reading instead of this, you know? Like, yeah. So I think that's going to be my last Hercule Poirot in order, at least. I might read some of the more popular ones, like I said, because presumably those are better in some way. We'll see. Now I want to talk a little bit about A Closed and Common Orbit. Okay, this is not spoilers, but in the first Wayfarer's book, there is some discussion of like AI's intelligence, sentience, like what makes something sentient. And in this, there is even more of that, especially as one of our characters is an AI. And so the way that she kind of like perceives and like thinks about other AIs that are not as advanced as her programming is. So they have a much smaller like program to just run like one singular job, and how she sort of reacts to that. And there's lots of just very interesting things about sentience and rights, I guess. And so I'm enjoying that a lot as well. And I think there's about to be some more interesting tattoo stuff. I just remember loving one scene where one of the characters in the first Wayfarer book said, you know, everything I've done to my body, he's extremely tattooed, I've done out of love. And I just think there's like similar themes that are about to be happening in this book about like, you know, owning your body and like feeling like it is your home and whatever. So all that's really nice. And I love it, and I can't wait to be listening to it today. Yeah, and starting Locklands, the third book in the Founderside trilogy. I'm not going to share anything about Locklands right now because I just talked for a long time and my coffee is gonna get cold.
Touch, touch, touch. What was that? No paw on me. Touch, chin. Welcome to Connor's Corner, everybody. Except Ruby's in it.
Good morning. Yeah, kind of forgot about vlogging yesterday because I was really busy reading, so that's good. And also, oops. But today, I'm making a pie because I was just thinking about like what I could do that's like series themed, that's not just reading. And this is kind of the only thing I came up with because I had sort of challenged myself to make 5 pies before the end of the summer, I guess. And this is gonna be the second one because I just don't feel super certain about my pie skills, dough specifically, and pastry. Like I've made a bunch and it's been fine, but I haven't really felt like I have a go-to recipe that I like know, that I trust. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm doing right now. So this is part of that series. But while I'm rolling out my dough and laminating it, yeah, I've watched the Great British Bake Off. I thought I would just talk about some things that I've been reading. So yesterday I read like almost 50% of Lachlan's, which was amazing. I did have some work to do yesterday also, but that didn't stop me from still reading a lot, especially at night. We were doing some sprints and some just like hanging out, and that was fun. And anyway, I read a lot, so yay. And actually last night, I feel like I was feeling pretty lackluster about it. I guess I haven't explained Lachlan's, and I don't think I really can, but Founderside is a trilogy fantasy series that's like heist based, and the magic system is kind of like coding based, but like you're coding reality, convincing walls that they're stronger and sturdier than they are. So magic system, super interesting, fun to read, a lot of like logic based arguments and stuff. And I think it's loosely based on like the merchant houses of Venice, maybe. That's definitely the vibe. Anyway, we're following Sanchia. She's a thief, and she's really good at manipulating or like understanding these codes or whatever. So in the first book, she's stealing something, and it's a sort of a smaller conflict with a sort of, smallish conclusion. Like, we have the issue and we solve the issue, but it kind of creates a bigger issue, and then that's what the second book is about, and then that creates an even bigger issue, and then that's what the third issue is about. So specifically yesterday, I was really like feeling like the problem was too vast, things were big and very complex in the story, and I was like, not that I didn't understand it, I just was not sure that I liked it. But something that this series does really well is fights. The fights are so good. So once I started having more fights in this book, I was like, oh yeah, they're just the pacing and the invention, again, because of how creative the magic system is. There's just so much opportunity for fun things to happen. And they do happen. Okay, here's my first fold. Eek. Here she is. Anyway, so yeah, it's been picking up. It's been really engaging, and I'm glad I'm reading it. The other thing that I'm reading for this, right now at least, is A Closed and Common Orbit. And I'm 70% of the way done with it, and I've been saving it up because I knew I was going to make this pie, and I wanted to be able to listen to it while I was doing pie stuff. And oh shoot, oh no, my countertop wasn't cold enough. Oh well. Almost done. I am loving it. The audiobook is so good. I'm so happy I'm listening to it, and I've actually already saved the next two in the series on Libby so that I can borrow them immediately after I'm done with this. Okay, there's our second fold. Yay. Okay, back into the fridge. The story is so good, and it, similar to the first Wayfarer's book, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, there's so much exploration of just differences and cooperation and friendship and humanity and whatever. It's just so beautiful and so heartwarming, and I love it so much. So I'm gonna listen to the other two as soon as I finish this one. I'm just so in it. I'm so invested, and This is like, I think, gonna be my favorite series. Maybe. I don't know if that's really true, but it's gonna be one of them for sure. I'm loving it. Just gonna keep listening to it while I clean up in here and let my dough rest for a minute, and then I will roll it out and blind bake it, which will be an experience. And then it's like a cold pie, so I'll just bake the crust and then let it chill while I make the filling and then chill it all together. Mwah. It's gonna be amazing, I think. But yeah, that's the update. That's where we're at with the books. It is the final day of the readathon and I am on track. I am like ahead of track and I feel great about that because, as I said, this will be my first time winning or completing a round of Squash That series. So first of all, this morning, little update, I read a novella. Maybe it's more of a short story, but really, what is a novella if not a short story? I read The Inheritance by Robin Hobb. This goes along with the Realm of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb, and it was pretty short, and I read it, and it made me very sad. It takes place in the, like, within the Ship of Magic part of the universe, I guess, and it sort of tells her the story of her inheritance, not only, you know, of material possessions that she did or did not get after her grandmother passes, but also of the kind of legacy that she inherited. But it just made me really sad to think about the kinds of things that I've inherited, not even, you know, from deceased relatives, but just thinking about some of the beliefs and like trauma that have been present in my family history and how like that kind of thing has been passed down in different kinds of ways, which I will not be getting into, but it just it was a good story, and it did just kind of make me upset. Not necessarily in a bad way. I like when things I read can affect me, but yeah, I was affected for sure. And so that is my middle square filled. And so I guess technically now I have 3 in a row going diagonally, with the novella and then the 2 corners from my Agatha Christie book. But I am 92% done with my audiobook for A Closed and Common Orbit, and I am loving that story. It just keeps developing more and more depth to these characters, and I'm really loving it, and it is really also affecting me, and I definitely think it's possible that I will shed some tears by the end of it. I'm also in kind of a delicate state today, so that could be why I'm so affected by all of these books and could increase the likelihood of me shedding some tears. The final update I have to share at this exact moment is that I am also 90% done with Locklands, which is going to be the 3rd and final book in the Foundryside trilogy. I have been having a lot of different feelings about the book as I've been reading it. At times I wasn't really sure I liked how big the concepts were getting, and then I was feeling a little bit more comfortable with that, and I was really enjoying some of the stuff, some of the fight scenes, and the way that some things were being explored. Reserving final judgment, but I do just want to say that this is the only book I've ever read that included like hive mind mentality, like the hive mind mentality, but where it is framed as a positive. And I am thinking a lot about that and how that is being used in the story and how it's being handled. And I think that that's taking a lot of my attention away from the story, because I'm just thinking so much about if I agree with Robert Bennett Jackson's like approach to this hive mind situation that has emerged. So yeah, that's extremely distracting for me, but I'm definitely gonna finish both of these today, and I will just be back to wrap up once I do that. All right, we have reached the end of Squash That series and the end of this vlog. I did finish both of the books that I was still reading when we last spoke before the end of the readathon, so I will be happily giving myself my three in a rows as originally laid out in my stretch goals for this readathon. But I also have that freebie from the challenges, so we're going to be talking about what I'm going to do with that in a moment. First, let me talk to you about the books. So I finished Lachlan's first, and I know I was like hot and cold with that book a little bit, and at the end I will just admit that I sobbed. I was sobbing. The ending hurt me so much, so deeply. The reason sort of is just that there is a character in this series who was introduced in the first book but is not a main character, and immediately I was like, we need more of them. Like, why were they such a side character in this? Like, they needed more background, like more fleshing out. Like, I want this character to be a main character, or I wanted to care about them more. So then in the second book, that kind of happened, and this character got a lot more screen time or page time and got more attention paid to character development, and I was like, yes, love this for me, I love this character. And then in the third book, the character was even more central and almost a main character, and not almost a main character in the story, and I was like living for that because this is my favorite character. However, well, two things. First of all, they got every short straw imaginable. Like, everything that was hard and painful that happened, I feel like was happening especially to them. I feel like they went through the most heartbreak, the most like just trials and like pain. And so by the end of the ending of this book, finally, where I have this character that I've been like wanting to know and to love for however many books, and now like they really we're not having a good time. A lot of really horrible things were happening in this book. It was, of course, like, you know, the ending, the finale of the trilogy, like it was intense, and that really hurt me, and I felt so much pain for my number one. Oh, so that really made me cry. But the other thing about them being a main character in this book was that I still felt like I didn't get a lot of like characterization for them other than what was in the books. Like, there was not a lot of attention paid to anything that happened to this person before the books happened, and like how they came to be who they are. Just like, this is who they are, but there was never any like foundational info given. I don't feel like Robert Jackson Bennett really appreciated my favorite character as much as I did. So when a book makes me cry like that, I want to give it 5 stars, because that means that I have a lot of emotions invested in the story. I was toyed with, I was manipulated, and I was hurt, and I love that. But in this case, I'm not gonna give Lachlan's 5 stars. I think I'm gonna give it 3 stars because it was just sloppy, I think. Like, it was so big and so vast is this world and this conflict now, that so many things were just like glossed over, and I was like, not a lot of this is maybe actually gonna hold water as far as like a plot. Like, there was just so much. I don't know. I didn't love it. I loved the first book in this trilogy. I liked the second one pretty well, and I liked this one fine. So that's really a bummer that nothing could really measure up to Foundry Side for me. And I don't think I'm gonna read any more by this author. I know he has some other series. I'm just not interested. Because yeah, I just think there was some lazy plot maneuvering in this that I just didn't appreciate. So that's that. I did finish Locklands. That's my continue from a previous round and series you were caught up on. And finally, I also finished A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers, series most recently started, and I loved it. It didn't make me cry, but it was really beautiful, and that I loved. The way that this book sort of functioned, so similar to A Long Way to a Small Every Planet, where there's a framework of a plot, a journey, an experience, but the purpose of the plot is just to offer a stage in which we can explore characters and like interpersonal relationships and themes of that nature. And this installment in the series worked for me in that way just as well as the first. There were much less characters. There were fewer characters, and the relationships and the issues were so different from the initial book, but it was just fabulous. I'm really not sure how to talk about the themes of this book without saying too much about it, but it was just a very deep exploration of personhood, what makes a person, and what makes like a being, and like worthy of attention, respect, rights, all of that. It honestly was very interesting to have read this so soon after having read Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, because it kind of deals with some of the same things. Although this book is not really about animals, it's more about artificial intelligence. And I actually immediately started the audiobook for the third book in the series. Like, I'm on a roll. I'm loving it, and I'm so glad that I read it. So that's my board. That's my Squash That series, Tic Tac TBR experience. And what I'm gonna do with my freebie, since I had this plan to get my 3 in a rows, and using the freebie would get me a 4th 3 in a row if I put it anywhere. There was nothing that I could have done to get a blackout of this to fill all the prompts. So I wasn't even going to try, but I did earn this freebie, and then I didn't really need to use it for my plan. So I think I'm gonna just give it to myself to use in my next round of Tic Tac TBR, which is my TBR game that this is based on, and I'm just gonna slide the reward over and give it to myself. So if you want to see how I make use of that, you're gonna have to come back here this time next week for my next video. But thank you so much for watching this vlog, for experiencing it with me, and thank you to everyone who participated in Squash That series, because that made it really fun. And thank you, of course, to Bailey and Kayla for hosting, because that made it exist. And yeah, I had a great time, and I can't wait to do it again. And thank you for watching, for liking, commenting, and subscribing. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you back here next week for another video.